welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, July 23rd. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Today on the show, we have 6 pitcher questions. Say bye-bye to the birdie, bird song for now. We'll talk about that. Waiver wire moves and much more. But let's jump in.
Oh my goodness! Unbelievable!
All right, Scott, player of the night. Somebody we talk about a lot.
Every time he pitches, he's the player of the night. We spent about 10 minutes talking about him last time. Thought we had finally landed in a good place. But no, Carlos Rodon comes back, throws a gem right after I dropped him in my shallowest league, by the way. Right after I did that. Carlos Rodon against the Rays strikes out 10 in 7 innings, 1 run, 2 hits allowed. It was a dominant start. And strangely, it was dominant even though he threw his fastball even more than usual. 54% versus 50. It's high either way. But it got 6 whiffs. His slider got 9 whiffs. Mostly focused on those 2 pitches after having some success with curveball and changeup recently. So I guess you could point to that as a change for Carlos Rodon. I don't know that it's a change that really explains what happened here. Given that in his previous 6 starts, he had a 9.67 ERA, none of those 6 starts being quality starts. You know, I wouldn't say I'm right back on board with Carlos Rodon. I wish I hadn't dropped him in that league now, but beyond that, I still think he's on very thin ice for fantasy. And in those 6 starts where he had a 9.67 ERA, he allowed 9 home runs. So, part of it, I think, is he was facing a bad Rays offense, only gave up 1 home run. Maybe the slider was working a little better than usual, and it all added up to a good day. I mean, even as Carlos Rodon has struggled, he's been able to rack up whiffs. So I don't think it's like outside of his skill set to have a start like this. It's just the bad starts have far outnumbered the good, especially lately. And, he reminded us what the upside could be. But I remain skeptical. Don't drop him yet, though.
As you mentioned, this was Carlos Rodon's first quality start since June 10th. You read the numbers in his 6 starts before this one. And overall, I think Tampa Bay is a good matchup. But against lefties, they are actually pretty good. 7th in WOBA against left-handed pitching entering this start. But obviously, it was a great one from Carlos Rodon. And he was part of a segment I had planned for later on. 6 pitcher questions. And the question for him is, what did he do differently in this start to stand out? And the only thing that really kind of pops off the screen, Scott, is that he did throw his curveball more in this one. He used it 16% of the time. And entering the start, it was 7% usage. So he more than doubled it. It didn't get any whiffs, but it did have 7 called strikes. So I do wonder if maybe it just caught opposing hitters off balance a little bit. They weren't expecting it. He was able to steal strikes a little bit here or there. It could just be that he executed his pitches better than he had been in previous starts, location-wise. Yeah. But does the curveball kind of factor in at all for you, him using it more in this one?
Well, let me look at the game log here, if it'll load for me. If we're not careful, we're going to end up spending 10 minutes talking about Carlos Rodon again. Because it's not loading for me. So, okay. So, yeah, what I was curious about, because he has been featuring his curveball more in general, at the start of the season, he wasn't throwing it much at all. So, yeah, it was double the usage if you compare it to his season-long curveball rate, but it was pretty close to in line with what it's been recently, and obviously we haven't seen that uptick in performance from Rodon recently, so I don't even know that I can take too much away from that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking at it too. Really, since the start of June, he's consistently been throwing it, double-digit percentage, that curveball. All right, so great start from Carlos Rodon. We talk about him all the time. Not really sure where you go from here. If you still have him, as Scott mentioned, I think you hold on, and let's see if he can build some good starts off of this one. My player of the night, and we don't do this often, Scott, but, there wasn't too much going on here on a Monday. Daniel Hudson, I am going to go with a reliever because he was thrown right back into the ninth inning on Monday with a 1-run lead. He walked 1, he struck out 2, he picked up his 7th save. He now has 3 saves in 4 games here in the second half. He has each of the Dodgers' last 4 saves overall. And we got a news update here on Monday from Dave Roberts, who stopped short of calling Evan Phillips his closer. He said Phillips could still pitch in safe situations, but that he could also appear in leverage spots earlier in games. They want to give him some opportunities right now to work through some of his recent struggles. And while he's doing that, Daniel Hudson might just run away with this thing because overall numbers this year, a 1.55 ERA, a .79 whip, over a strikeout per inning. Daniel Hudson, 35% roster. That is a number that I think needs to jump up quite a bit.
Yeah, I was lamenting just yesterday that some of those early weekly fab runs Sunday, I hadn't looked at the latest Dodgers box score before I put in my bids there, and so I missed out on Daniel Hudson, who went for a reasonable amount. I did get him in a roto league that ran later in the night, and I feel pretty happy about that because he has closer caliber numbers. Now he has each of the Dodgers' last 4 saves, including 3 since the All-Star break. Evan Phillips is imploding. I do worry about the presence of Alex Vesia a little bit, left-hander who also has closer caliber numbers, and he had 3 saves and pretty quick succession leading into the All-Star break. But it certainly looks like Daniel Hudson has the upper hand right now. I don't know that Dave Roberts likes having a set closer if he had his druthers. He was stuck with Kenley Jansen in that role. You could say blessed with Kenley Jansen in that role, I guess, but he kind of was obligated to run Kenley Jansen out there in the ninth consistently. But ever since he left, I mean, last year, Phillips did emerge as the top guy, but there were intrusions from Brusdar Gratterall, you may remember. And I don't know that Roberts is ever going to be that committal to any one reliever unless it was a super stud. But Daniel Hudson, I think you have to bet on him being the leading guy right now.
Would you drop any of these names for Daniel Hudson? They're all 50% rostered or more on CBS. Jason Foley.
Yeah, I'd rather have Hudson.
What about Hector Neris?
I guess.
We got a report on Monday that the Dodgers are looking more towards the Cubs, are looking more towards the future. So it sounds like they're going to be sellers here at the deadline. And I think Hector Neris is someone who makes some sense for them to move. So
I don't think he's signed beyond this year, is he?
He might have an option year.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like if you were asking me who is more likely, well, I don't even know that that's true. Obviously, if Hector Neris gets traded, all bets are off. He is the Cubs closer, and Daniel Hudson, I'm not as confident as the Dodgers closer, but Daniel Hudson, I think, is a lot better. Mm-hmm. So if you're selling out for upside and probably the sort of league where you could even think about dropping Neris, you are, then I guess, yes, I would rather have Daniel Hudson.
At this point, with Devin Williams so close to returning, would you drop somebody like Trevor McGill to pick up Daniel Hudson?
I mean, McGill has been so good. I know he's had a couple rough outings recently. I just wonder, what if Devin Williams suffers a setback?
It's
then
possible.
You gave up a pretty good closer in Trevor McGill.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if that was the only way to get Hudson, I'd do it, but I don't love it.
And the last name, Jose Alvarado, who we know has struggled over the past month or so, and Jeff Hoffman has looked great.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Alvarado ever had the job outright. And so I think in a best case scenario, he's where Hudson is, and it's possible Hudson is getting a greater share now than Alvarado ever had.
All right. I want to give a shout out to Bobby Witt Jr., who is probably the hottest hitter in baseball right now. He finished a single short of the cycle. He got hit by a pitch in the 8th inning while he was going for that cycle, which is pretty annoying for everybody involved. I know there was some shouting involved between the D-backs and the Royals in that game, but Bobby Witt, 3 for 4 with his 18th home run, 3 runs scored, 3 RBI. He has 3 hits in all 4 of his games so far in the second half. So 12 hits total, 2 homers, 7 runs, 6 RBI. Awesome season and awesome start to the second half here for Bobby Witt Jr. Thanks to everyone for hanging out and watching live. We appreciate you for being here. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. That's youtube.com/fantasybaseball today. And if you enjoy the audio podcast, make sure to drop us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. Let's take our first break. When we return, we'll hit the news and notes right after this.
Football action continues.
Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances?
As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North.
It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield.
Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back in. Let's talk news and notes. Julio Rodriguez was out of the lineup on Monday with that right ankle injury. His manager, Scott Service, said Julio is day-to-day after undergoing an MRI. I did not see any results on the MRI. Scott, did you see anything on Julio?
Well, I keep seeing he doesn't have a major ankle injury. They're saying that much. So I don't know that I've seen specifically what the MRI showed, but they keep saying it's a day-to-day injury.
This is from Ryan Divish, who covers the Mariners for the Seattle Times 11 minutes ago. Julio Rodriguez has a mild ankle sprain and is day-to-day. So that's your latest update. Mookie Betts took light swings on Monday for the first time since suffering a fractured left hand. Royce Lewis will begin a rehab assignment with AAA on Tuesday. He's been sidelined for 3 weeks with a right adductor strain. We got some Angels news. Mike Trout will begin his rehab on Tuesday and will play at least 2 games before returning. Luis Rengifo could be ready.
At least 2?
At least 2, yeah. Probably needs more, but
probably.
That was the specific number that I saw in multiple reports. They just
at least 2. Could be 20.
Yeah.
But at least 2.
Luis Rengifo could be ready to return from the IL on Tuesday. And turns out the Red Sox are interested in trading for Luis Rengifo. So we'll see if that actually happens. Jared Jones threw off flat ground from about 90 to 120 feet on Monday. He went on the IL on July 4th with a grade 2 right lat strain. The hope is he could return in August, assuming no setbacks. Michael Harris has yet to progress to sprinting as he works his way back from a left hamstring strain. Cody Bellinger is able to hit without much discomfort, but is still having some trouble gripping a baseball. He's nearly 2 weeks removed from suffering a fractured left middle finger. Kodai Senga is expected to get about 5 innings and 85 pitches in his season debut, which is scheduled for Friday against the Braves. Jacob deGrom is... Did you want to add something on Senga?
I just... I'm a little unsure how this is going to go for Kodai Senga. Maybe I just feel like we've all gotten burned with the other pitchers who were injured for the entire season and recently came back, like Gavin Williams and Shane Baz and even Max Scherzer, Garrett Cole even.
Yeah.
For the first couple turns, though he seems to have righted the ship. I keep with Kodai Senga. I mean, it was shoulder issues. There were setbacks where he was having to work on his delivery. His velocity has been down about a mile per hour across the board at AAA. And I keep coming back to, well, are we even that confident he's good to begin with? Because, yeah, he had a promising rookie season that had us all ranking him in the top 20 initially for the strikeout upside. But within that rookie season, there were control issues. It was pretty scary at first, the control, and he kind of leveled out, but it was not a strength of his. And so if he comes off the IL here last week of July, walking a batter per inning, I just wonder how long we're going to stick with him. So he needs to be rostered, obviously, and you hope for the best. But I think those other disappointments that I referred to, just need to keep it in perspective. It is kind of a lottery ticket play, like when you add a top prospect call up. You hope for the best, but you expect, you just got to think of it as kind of a bonus.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I am confident in saying last year's version of Kodai Senga was a good pitcher. I just don't know that we're going to get that pitcher right off the IL, which obviously you
Yeah.
spoke about. And his last start at AAA, it wasn't a good one. 3 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, 3 walks to 1 strikeout. So obviously do not start Kodai Senga here in his first start back against the Atlanta Braves.
I was writing about this earlier today, which I guess is why it was on my mind. But the 3 who are coming back this week: Kodai Senga, Robbie Ray, Clayton Kershaw, and soon to follow Jeffrey Springs. So he's making one more rehab start. Will probably be back next week. I think you treat them all as if you just picked them up off waiver wire, because in many cases you did. So you're valuing them like a player you just picked up off the waiver wire, but one that you wouldn't dream of putting back on the waiver wire. So you got to find that middle ground between those two. You're not putting too many hopes in them, but at the same time, you're recognizing there's tons of upside here, and you want to see how it plays out.
Jacob deGrom is getting close to facing hitters. He'll throw around 40 pitches in a bullpen session Tuesday and is slated for another bullpen on Friday, maybe late August, September for Jacob deGrom. Robbie Ray, as we just mentioned, will make his season debut Wednesday against the Dodgers. Welcome back. You have to face one of the best lineups in baseball right out of the gate. Robbie Ray is 67% rostered, and one of the corresponding moves here was that Hayden Birdsong was optioned to single A, but will be back to start their doubleheader on Saturday. What happens after that? I have no idea. So obviously good on you, Scott, for bringing this up as a possibility yesterday. I didn't really think, look, maybe he comes up on Saturday for the doubleheader, Birdsong, and he's just great again. And they say, all right, let's move Jordan Hicks to the bullpen, yada, yada, and we'll figure it out. But
somebody goes on the IL, life finds a way in that way.
Yeah,
that's possible, but it does.
It's frustrating.
This would seem to suggest that Birdsong is going to be the odd man out, and that if not for the doubleheader and the extra arm that requires, the extra roster spot that opens up, that maybe Birdsong would be down for a while. We'll see what happens between now and then.
What about his teammate, Alex Cobb, who is also working his way back? Cobb threw 5 scoreless innings with 4 strikeouts in a rehab start at AAA on Saturday. He's only 8% rostered. Obviously, Scott, not to the same talent level as these other names, and it's even more of a lottery ticket, I think, even, mostly for deeper leagues. But do you have any interest in Alex Cobb?
I've never been the biggest Alex Cobb guy. I know he's been a fantasy darling for a long time. And he's had his moments, but he generally ends up being a pretty fringy 12-team league option. So I'd put him more in, I guess, that Kyle Gibson class. I think at his best, he's better than Kyle Gibson, and maybe he can become that once he's proven his health, and he'll be a little more locked in on 12-team rosters. But I wouldn't say my hopes for Alex Cobb being a difference maker in fantasy are especially high.
Are you a big fan of corn on the cob?
Yes, I like corn on the cob. I don't know why it's so much better than corn off the cob, but I've marveled at that even as a child. Corn on the cob, so much better than corn off the cob. Just little corn niblets on your plate.
I think it does taste better. It's also a lot of work. I feel like it gets stuck in your teeth a lot more when you eat it.
Like eating it's a lot of work?
Yeah, like eating corn on the cob. I think objectively,
I would argue it's less work.
It's more work than just putting a fork on a plate and scooping some corn into your mouth,
No, anything you eat with your hands is less work than with utensils.
Maybe, but not corn on the cob. I think corn on the cob is a little different.
It may just be that I dress up corn on the cob, getting back to my point a little more. Like I slather it with butter. I break out the salt and pepper.
There you go.
When corn, and just like, whatever. I just shovel it in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll think about it some more. Get back to you.
All right. This news actually just came in. JP Crawford was diagnosed with a fractured pinky and will go on the IL. I guess Dylan Moore could take over at shortstop, although he started at first base, and they designated Ty France for assignment. So I don't know. We're probably going to get some roster shuffling from the Mariners moving forward. Red Sox manager Alex Cora said Monday that Tristan Casas could be close to turning a corner in the recovery process. Casas has been out since late April with torn cartilage in his left rib. Bobby Miller will remain in AAA for at least his next start. He made a start at AAA this past weekend. He threw 5 scoreless innings, but he did have 4 walks in that start as well. Tommy Edman is expected to resume his rehab assignment with AA on Tuesday. He has not played since July 14th due to lingering ankle soreness. He's also working his way back from offseason wrist surgery. The Dodgers promoted River Ryan on Monday, and as a result, they designated James Paxton for assignment. The Braves signed Whit Merrifield to a 1-year contract. On his first day with the team, he was struck on the right hand by an errant ground ball during defensive drills, and he's been cleared of any fractures, but not sure when we'll actually see Whit Merrifield on the field with the Atlanta Braves. Maybe makes a difference in deeper leagues at some point.
It was funny before the podcast. I was like, Whit Merrifield's with the Braves? Because I just saw this news item, and you had the same reaction. Like, we discovered Whit Merrifield had signed with the Braves because of this injury news. And I hadn't even heard that the Phillies let him go. I guess it happened during my little mini break around the All-Star break, and wasn't following the news as closely. So I missed that one, and he signed with the Braves. It does kind of put a little pressure on Nacho Alvarez to deliver right away, I would say, because they have an alternative there in Whit Merrifield, who's had a rough season but hasn't been getting consistent at bats, and you wonder if he would benefit from more consistent at bats.
And we are 1 week away from the trade deadline. Here is the latest. I mentioned the Red Sox are interested in Luis Rengifo, and barring a winning streak by the Cubs this week, the team will likely sell at the deadline. 6 pitcher questions. We already spoke about Carlos Rodon. Let's talk about Cole Ragans, who turned in a quality start up against the D-backs. 6 innings, 3 runs, 5 strikeouts. He had 12 whiffs on 105 pitches. And what has stood out to me, 4 starts in a row where his velocity is down considerably. In this start, Cole Ragans' velocity on all of his pitches was down between 1.4 and 2.2 miles per hour. He averaged 94.1 on his fastball. That's down 1.7 from his career mark. He's been at 94.4 or lower in 3 of his last 4 starts. But it hasn't affected the production. He's still been really good. So maybe this doesn't matter at all. Scott, how much are you worried about Cole Ragans' velocity drop over his last 4 starts?
Yeah, well, I've been monitoring it. There hasn't been much reason to bring it up on the podcast, I guess, because he's been so dominant, even with that 1.5 to 2 mile per hour drop, and not just on the fastball, by the way, kind of on everything. And because he's so dominant, because he's been so dominant, I kind of wonder if this is something he's done on purpose to command his pitchers better. They have such good characteristics that maybe he doesn't need quite as much velocity. But it does raise the question of, is he getting tired? Is he pitching through an injury? It makes you wonder, especially if the production takes a turn for the worse. This wasn't his greatest start. It was still a quality start. And so I wouldn't say I'm worried, but I am mindful of it. I'm cognizant of it.
All right, let's move over to Blake Snell, who has looked much better since returning from the IL earlier this month. He went 6 innings. He allowed 2 runs, only 4 strikeouts, but had 12 whiffs on 83 pitches in a tough matchup against the Dodgers. He leaned all the way into that curveball. He more than doubled the curveball usage. He threw it 43% of the time, and it was amazing in the start. Velocity was up for Blake Snell, and in 3 July starts, he has a 1 ERA, a .61 whip. Scott, the question here, is Blake Snell back?
Well, I mean, that start right before the All-Star break was so dominant. I pretty much declared it on Twitter when it happened and said, you need to get back to starting him. This is it. This is the moment you were waiting for. So far, so good. He turned in another nice outing, although the strikeouts weren't impressive. It was a good stat line overall. And we've seen Blake Snell turn the corner with this approach before, where he kind of simplifies everything, just zeroes in on the pitches that are working. In the past, it was the slider. This year, it seems to be the curveball with the over 40% whiff rate. And that seems to be enough when he does that, because that's what's keyed some of these big second halves he's had in the past, is simplifying, reducing his pitches. Last year, when he won the Cy Young, he had everything working. And so maybe that's Blake Snell at his very best. But this approach should be good enough if it keeps him in the strike zone and keeps him missing bats. It should be good enough. So two starts are two starts, but we've seen this pattern from Blake Snell so many times before that I think if you're invested in him at all, this is what it was for, and you have to take advantage of it.
Let's talk about Ranger Suarez, who has not been as sharp recently, perhaps due to that back injury he's been pitching with, but he was at the Twins. He went 5 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, 4 strikeouts to 1 walk. He only had 7 whiffs on 79 pitches. And the question here, Scott, do you think we should bench Suarez while he works his way through this back injury? Because he just has not been as sharp. A 7.71 ERA, a 1.76 whip over his last 4 starts.
Well, I mean, it was a 2-start pitcher this week, so you obviously couldn't bench him. It's the sort of stat line this time where it's close to being unremarkable, right? If he gets 2 more outs, goes 6 innings instead of 5 1/3. If he allows 1 fewer earned run, 2 instead of 3, then we're probably not even mentioning it,
Yeah.
I think it's just, this is closer to a typical Ranger Suarez start than what we were seeing earlier in the season. It's the regression. How much of it is owed to the back? I don't know. If his back was bothering him that much, he probably wouldn't have pitched in the All-Star game. So I think maybe we don't treat Ranger Suarez as a must start anymore, but always because that's the direction we were heading.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Reynaldo Lopez, who allowed a season-high 4 earned runs up against the Reds. He went 6 innings, gave up those 4 runs, had 5 strikeouts, still had 13 whiffs on 85 pitches, allowed a lot of hard contact in this one, 9 hard hits allowed. Crazy to think he allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in each of his first 17 starts before this one for Reynaldo Lopez. We've seen some things pop up recently with the walk, Scott, and, giving up some more hard contact. Do you get the sense, obviously you're close to the Braves, I know you watch a lot of Reynaldo Lopez. Do you get the sense that the innings and are starting to catch up a little bit here, or is this just a blip for Reynaldo?
It could be. I mean, partly what I just said about Ranger Suarez also applies to Reynaldo Lopez. There was no way he was going to sustain an ERA below 2. It's not like his velocity is down. I think that would be a clear indicator that he's tiring. The fastball was down 0.6, but other pitches were up in velocity. So yeah, I don't think there's much there with the velocity for Reynaldo Lopez. He's bound to regress, and you hope it's not like him running into a brick wall and getting bombed every time out. The last 2 starts, he gave his team a chance to win and gave you a chance for a worthy outing in fantasy. But yeah, it's been a little less crisp, and it'll probably be it probably should have been like that all along, and we can assume it's probably going to be like that going forward. He just was pitching over his head. I think he's useful. I think Reynaldo Lopez is still worth keeping around, but like Ranger Suarez, I wouldn't consider a must start, and I would expect a worse second half than the first half.
He is now up to 101 2/3 innings for Reynaldo Lopez. Last year, he threw 66, and he has not been over 100 innings since 2019. So I think the innings are obviously starting to, add up a little bit. I'm not saying that's exactly why he's looked a little bit more human over the past month or so, but it could be part of the calculation there with Reynaldo Lopez. Bailey Ober has been good for quite some time now. He was up against the Phillies, 7 innings, 2 runs, had 4 strikeouts with 10 whiffs on 83 pitches. Did give up some hard contact in this start, but overall, last 6 outings for Bailey Ober, a 2.23 ERA, a .84 whip, over a strikeout per inning. Scott, is it time to get Bailey Ober back inside of our top 40 starting pitchers rest of season?
Yeah, I believe I've gotten him there. Yeah,
we are just both outside of it.
Just both outside?
Yeah.
Close enough.
Mm-hmm.
Close enough, Frank. Is there a huge difference between 38 and 41?
Yeah. I couldn't think of a better question. Do you have a better question that you would like to answer?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I feel like we've been saying that for the past few starts now. Yeah, he's been frustrating because of the ups and downs, and there were stretches where he wasn't working deep into games even when he was pitching well, but he's clearly turned the corner as far as that goes. 6 straight starts of 6 innings or more, including a complete game effort in there. So I think Bailey Ober is maybe not quite must start, but pretty close.
This has turned into a pretty fun group in the 30 to 45 range, where you have names like Hunter Green and Taj Bradley and Christopher Sanchez and Bailey Ober and Michael King. A lot of those guys have, really, really not turned their seasons around, but they're on great runs right now. A lot of those pitchers right now, and obviously deserving of being ranked this high or maybe even higher. So it's a good range for those guys.
Yep. I am going to do my big rankings update tomorrow, and I imagine I'll be moving Hunter Green up even more, probably past Ranger Suarez. And let's see, I could probably get Bailey Ober up a couple spots. I'd move him ahead of Cutter Crawford, who I worry about him getting burned by the long ball now that the ball is carrying better. And maybe a couple other guys too.
Yeah. Like, let's get Kevin Gausman lower.
Yeah.
That guy stinks.
And it's starting to feel that way.
Yeah. And I feel supremely more confident in just a lot of those other names I mentioned, the Taj Bradleys and Hunter Greens right now. We'll talk about Hunter Green in just a little bit, but I do want to throw one hitter question in here. Lots of pitcher talk, but we've been getting lots of questions about Bryson Stott and what to do here. He's really just had one good month this season, and he's now, this has been happening all year. He's sitting against lefties. I'm not exactly sure why. He's actually better.
Not for Whit Merrifield, I'll tell you that much.
He's actually sitting. He's better against lefties than he is against righties in his career overall. He was good against both lefties and righties last year. So I'm not exactly sure why he's sitting. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's kind of led to a confidence issue here. But the point is that Bryson Stott had a really good May, but since the start of June, 39 games, he's batting .226 with 1 homer, 8 steals, a sub 600 OPS. And overall, I mean, he's batting .236 on the season, 6 homers, 22 steals, a 669 OPS. The power and speed, I don't think is far off from what we're expecting. Probably in the 12 home run, 30 steal range, right? That's close to what we were expecting. The batting average, the OBP, the OPS, that's pretty bad right now for Bryson Stott. So he's 92% rostered. Can you start to think about dropping someone like Bryson Stott in a shallower league?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably fine. I don't know. You're too late for like Jonathan India, who's turned his season around. But there's probably a large group of second basemen like that who, in those head-to-head leagues where there's no extra middle infield spot to fill, so the waiver wire is more fertile, you can kind of swap them out depending on how they're going. I don't think this is the end for Bryson Stott. I don't think you drop him now and you'll never hear from him again, and he'll never be worth picking up again in that format. But yeah, he's got a limited ceiling. He has platoon issues that, when he's going well, I think will become less of an issue. I think we'll see him play more against left-handers when he's hitting well. And it's not like looking at the skill indicators on a StatCast page, it's not like he's become a fundamentally different player. So I think he will make up ground before the season's over, but I understand he's killing you right now. And in a shallow league, there are probably second basemen who wouldn't be killing you.
All right, again, that is Bryson Stott. Let's take our final break, and when we return, we'll take a look at the waiver wire options from Monday. We'll do that right after this.
You hear that? It's the steady pulse of the world's game that's turning fans into family and sport into passion. You hear that? It's the heartbeat of American soccer. The USL on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back in. Let's take a look at some waiver wire pitchers. And Tobias Myers was just okay at the Cubs. 5 1/3, 3 runs allowed. He had 6 strikeouts with 10 whiffs on 87 pitches. Still does have a 3.14 ERA and a 1.15 whip on the year. We mentioned the Dodgers called up River Ryan, who is one of their pitching prospects, and he pitched well in his season debut against the Giants. 5 1/3, 1 unearned run with 3 walks to 2 strikeouts. Did only have 5 whiffs on 73 pitches, but he throws hard, 96 on the fastball. He's got a bunch of different pitches. Andre Palante turned in a quality start at the Pirates, 6 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts. I feel like that's the Scott White special. And every time I see him as a streamer, I feel like you recommend him, and he does pretty well. And Hogan Harris was great up against the Astros, 6 2/3 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. His velocity was down quite a bit in this one, but overall, a great start for him. Scott, any interest here in Hogan Harris, Andre Palante, River Ryan, and Tobias Myers?
I think Tobias Myers is the most interesting, particularly if we're thinking River Ryan is not going to stick around long. Glass now and Clayton Kershaw coming back in the next couple days. I would imagine that's the case. River Ryan is a prospect of some note. Got strikeouts at a nice clip in the minors. Has 6 different pitches that he threw here, and this was his debut, right? His major league debut.
It was his season debut. I thought he might have pitched last year. I could be wrong.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
And has a good ground ball rate, 6-pitch arsenal. Yeah, there are some interesting things going on with River Ryan, but I don't think now is his time. So the most interesting apart from him, I will maintain, is Tobias Myers. Not that I think he has huge upside, but the effectiveness of his slider and changeup are notable. Interestingly, he leaned even more on the fastball in this one, which I'd rather not see Tobias Myers do. I'd rather him see it throw it less, but came pretty close to a quality start. And for the year now, 3.14 ERA, 1.15 whip. I don't need to know that he needs to be rostered everywhere, but I do think Tobias Myers is going to keep appearing as a sleeper pitcher as matchups warrant. Andre Palante, you said every time he shows up as a potential sleeper pitcher for the day, I end up picking him. If the matchup's good enough, yes. He's not an upside deep pitcher at all. I just think the ground ball rate is so high that if you're going start by start, who of these bad pitchers is most likely to give you a quality start? Well, the guy who gets ground balls at a 60% clip is least likely to get bombed of this not interesting group. So that therefore makes him the most likely to give you a quality start. So that's why I lean on him in those streaming situations.
Who would you take between Tobias Myers and Robbie Ray?
Oh, Myers. No, I'm sorry, not Myers. I was thinking River Ryan when you said Robbie Ray. No, definitely Robbie Ray.
Yeah, too many R alliteration names on today's podcast.
Yeah.
One name I wanted to bring up who had a very rough outing here. If you picked him up for a 2-start week, I'm sorry. You might be able to drop him after this one because it was a pretty rough outing for Gilbert Diaz. It actually turns out it's Gilbert Diaz. It's spelt with a Y, but I heard it on the broadcast, and I've heard it on multiple broadcasts now. So, yeah, it actually is pronounced with a J, but he was at the Royals where he allowed 7 earned runs over 3 innings. I picked him up in a few spots. He looked great in his first 2 starts before this. But, Scott, if you picked up Gilbert Diaz, do you think it's all right to drop him after this one?
Yeah, I still think he's a young pitcher of note, but I don't think he deserves the leash that like Christian Scott has gotten. And of course, Christian Scott has about run out of leash himself. So yeah, Gilbert Diaz had big strikeout numbers in the minors. Coming into this start, his slider, after 2 starts, had a really good whiff rate, over 40%, but it didn't get a single whiff in this one. And he got knocked around pretty good. So yeah, I think Gilbert Diaz, you can put him to the side for now.
Let's talk waiver wire hitters. And Michael Busch continues to hit. He went 2 for 4 with an RBI and a steal. He really just had a bad May. If you look at his monthly splits, he hit 208 with a 712 OPS in May, but he's hit 282 or higher with an OPS of 848 or better in each of the other 3 months this season. And overall, he's hit 270. He's got 12 home runs and 820 OPS, 76% roster. I don't know that he's a huge ceiling play, Michael Busch, and we've talked about him a lot recently, but in a points league, he's just solid, Scott. He gets on base, gives you a decent amount of power. The OPS is good. Hits in the middle of not a good lineup, but it's in the middle, so there could be some counting stats as well. Does he need to be more than 76% rostered, I guess, Michael Busch?
I don't think so. And I love Michael Busch. I'm not sure he's there yet. And considering he's 26, I can understand somebody saying, oh, well, if he's not there yet, when will he ever get there? Okay, he's still a rookie. And there's still a learning curve here. In the long run, is he going to strike out at a 30% rate? I'm hopeful he doesn't, because it's not like strikeouts were a huge issue for him in the minors. And I think that could be what allows him to take the next step forward. There clearly seems to be some power there. He's capable of drawing a walk, certainly. And the strikeout rate has been better in June. It's 22%, but it's still a lot of 2 strikeout games. And in points leagues, especially, that's going to limit Michael Busch's utility. Overall, I like the direction he's trending, but I don't think he's quite there yet where he needs to be universally rostered.
3 third base eligible hitters who are right around 75% rostered. Scott, how would you rank Michael Busch, Colt Keith, and Mark Vientos?
Vientos is cooled off. I'm still going to put him number 1, but Colt Keith is surging. I think I'm going to put Colt Keith ahead of Michael Busch. He hasn't had strikeout issues all year. Actually, his strikeout rate's gone up here in July as his production is taken off. It's still not a bad strikeout rate. But for the month of July, did you give these numbers yet?
Nope.
For the month of July, Colt Keith, after adding a home run here on Monday, is slashing 333, 433, 737 with 6 home runs.
Yeah. Looking at that now. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It took some time, but this is closer to the player that we thought we were getting coming into the season. So as we've seen with many prospects, top prospects, middling prospects, whatever it might be, a lot of these guys, they kind of fall flat early, get a couple months in, and then, all right, now he's starting to hit the ground running. So, I think it's a good time here to either add Colt Keith, or if you have him, obviously just hold on to him.
And so how much of that is the rookie having gotten enough reps that he's found his stride in the majors? How much of it is that versus how much of it is the ball is carrying a lot better now in July?
It's hard to say, right?
It is hard to say.
It's a fair question. It's probably a little bit of both, because, when you first get called up, I mean, I can imagine the game must be going so fast for these guys, and especially the pitchers that you face in the majors versus the pitchers in AAA. It just feels like it's a completely different game. So I'm not surprised by it. And I think, things are just starting to slow down for some of these guys. And we're seeing it with Colt Keith and Jackson Churrios picking things up. So,
well, specifically with Keith, because remember I talked about Jackson Chourio yesterday, how through June his average exit velocity was 88 miles per hour. In July, or maybe I don't have those timelines right. I think it was through May. Yeah, average exit velocity was 88 miles per hour for Jackson Chourio. Since then, 90 miles per hour. So that is skill improvement. That's measurable. But I don't think, I'd have to double check, but just going off memory, I don't think Colt Keith's exit velocity has improved as the production has improved. So it makes me wonder a little more in his case.
Mm-hmm. I could quickly pull it up here in July. Yeah, 87.5 average exit velocity, 7.2% barrel rate. It's not great for Colt Keith. So I don't know. Maybe
it's not everything, but it does raise the question of, okay, was he? Well, are those batted balls just carrying more now?
Yeah. It's not like he's hitting a ton of fly balls or pulling it either. I don't I don't know how to explain what Colt Keith is doing right now, but he's hot. Some other hot hitters, I guess, at least on Monday, had themselves some big games. Brian De La Cruz, 3 for 5 with a sock and a shoe, his 17th home run, his 3rd stolen base. He is 68% rostered, and Will Benson had a huge game, 2 for 2 with a sock and 2 shoes. That's a homer and 2 steals. And he's up to 11 homers and 13 steals on the season, but it also comes with a 194 batting average. Will Benson is 23% rostered. Any interest in either of those outfielders, Scott? Brian De La Cruz, Will Benson?
Well, not Will Benson.
Yeah.
Brian De La Cruz is whatever. He has a decent home run total. Not much of anything else because he's in such a bad lineup, doesn't draw walks, so that brings down the run scored, and he's a serviceable 5th outfielder, but that's about it.
One other name here, Austin Wells has quietly been solid as of late, 3 for 5 with his 7th home run. He's actually hit cleanup for the Yankees 3 games in a row, and over his last 17 games, Austin Wells is batting .277 with 5 home runs and 10 RBI, 15% rostered. Deeper 2 catcher league, Scott, have you given any thought to Austin Wells if he was available?
I have not. Have you? Have you, Frank? Let's just have a little conversation.
I can tell you that in leagues where I have been streaming my second catcher spot in 15-team roto leagues, I wish Austin Wells was available.
Yeah, well, it's a very specific scenario.
If I have teams where, like, I have a few teams where my second catcher has been bad. It's been Corey Lee and Ben Rortfit and names like that. It's if I could swap those out for Austin Wells, I'd absolutely do it.
Sure. That anybody who's breathing. That's good enough for those leagues. Can I bring up one other hitter here?
Yes.
Who I kind of wanted to talk about yesterday, but definitely today. I think we should talk about Tyler Fitzgerald.
Okay.
Of the Giants, who has started their last 3 games at shortstop and has homered in all 3 of them. And in fact, he's homered in 4 straight games for the Giants. 11 days in between the first 2 of those games, but then 3 in a row here. His numbers in the majors are very good. 299 batting average, 5 homers, 7 steals, and just 96 plate appearances. His numbers in the minors are very good. This is Tyler Fitzgerald we're talking about. So AAA Sacramento, he slashed 310, 402, 718, 8 home runs in 87 plate appearances. You look at last year's numbers, very good. 22 homers, 32 steals with a 292 batting average. Tyler Fitzgerald, he's 26 years old. He's a versatile defender. It's kind of surprising he doesn't get discussed more. And it's one of those cases where, okay, he doesn't hit the ball very hard. His strikeout rate in both the majors and minors is pretty high. Like, he probably shouldn't be hitting this well by the data points. And yet he is, and he has for a long time if you look at the minor league track record as well. So I think it's somebody to keep an eye on because there are ways he's easy to fit in the lineup, as versatile as he is. The Giants need help on offense. It's not like they have a lineup full of star hitters. And I think as long as Tyler Fitzgerald performs, he's going to keep getting chances, power, speed. Again, he probably shouldn't have power and speed, but he has in both the majors and minors. So let's keep an eye on it.
Tyler Fitzgerald, 1% rostered on CBS. He has second base, shortstop, and outfield eligibility. Probably just an NL only name for now, but if he continues to play, deeper mixed roto leagues, could factor in there. Let's get into some of the leftovers, and we will start with the pitchers. Part 1, Tarek Skubal turned in a solid start at the Guardians. 7 innings, 10 hits. That was surprising, a season high, but still just 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts, had 15 whiffs on 97 pitches. Mitch Keller turned in another strong start. He was up against the Cardinals. 7 innings, 1 run ball with 3 strikeouts, only 3 whiffs on 97 pitches. And Hunter Green, a dominant start at the Atlanta Braves, 7 shutout with 7 strikeouts, 11 whiffs on 112 pitches. They just let him go in this one. He's turned in 3 straight quality starts. He has 7+ strikeouts in each of those. Scott, anything to add on Hunter Green, Mitch Keller, and Tarek Skubal?
It's not just 3 straight quality starts for Hunter Green. 20 innings between them, only 7 hits allowed, only 1 run allowed. So he has been dominant lately. And, there's a lot to like here. Beyond the obvious, he throws hard. He has the 10.2 K per 9. Lots of weak contact, lots of in-the-air contact. That's a good combination if you're allowing fly balls that aren't hit especially hard. That's a lot of outs. That's hit prevention. That's kind of why he's allowed 7 hits in his last 20 innings. So I think Hunter Green, I just mentioned, I'll probably move him ahead of Ranger Suarez rest of the season. He could still get burned by the long ball. He could still get burned by walks, but I think the upside outcomes now, he's reaching them more often, and they're pretty impressive.
And pitching leftovers part 2, we had Eric Fetty turn in another quality start at the Rangers, 6 1/3, 2 runs allowed, 5 strikeouts. I think he's going to work out pretty well for a contending team that it's just going to be an under the radar move. No one's excited about trading for Eric Fetty, but if he goes to a Dodgers or an Orioles team, that could be pretty good for his fantasy value. Tyler Anderson got away with it again against a Julio Rodriguez-less Mariners lineup. So a pretty good matchup here. 5 2/3, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, 18 whiffs on 96 pitches. He has 18+ whiffs in 2 of his last 3 starts. And Bryce Miller on the other side had a great start up against the Angels. He threw 7 shutout with 5 strikeouts, only 9 whiffs on 94 pitches. Scott, anything on Bryce Miller, Tyler Anderson, and Eric Fetty?
Yeah, there's been a lot of hand-wringing over Bryce Miller, and I get it because there are some people who are very, very high on Bryce Miller's upside, but I don't want to go too far the other direction either. It's okay if a pitcher's not a stud. Like he could just be a perfectly fine pitcher. And I think Bryce Miller, I can say that about him even more confidence than I can like Reynaldo Lopez, who I was kind of making the same case for. His control has been really good, especially lately. It's been really good. 2 walks combined in his last 4 starts. He has a decent strikeout rate. You compare him to Eric Fetty, and I think there are still more marks in Bryce Miller's favor than Eric Fetty's. And I think there has been less discouraging talk of Fetty lately than Miller. So, yeah, Bryce Miller probably not an ace or a must-start pitcher, but a must-roster pitcher, I would say, and one who's worth mixing in at least with the right matchups, if not more often than that. I'll also say for Tyler Anderson, this is now 2 of his last 3 starts have been his best swinging strike starts of the season, and with good swinging strike numbers. And the caveat has always been, I will not believe in Tyler Anderson, no matter how long he continues this, unless there's a skill change. He's missing more bats. I haven't identified exactly what the skill change is, but I like missed bats. So he probably needs to be rostered in every league at this point. I'm not saying it'll stay that way. I would definitely be calling him a sell high candidate still, but coming into this week, he qualified as a sleeper pitcher, so he wasn't rostered everywhere. He probably needs to be at this point. And just treat him with great skepticism and openness on the trade market. But he needs to be rostered.
Tyler Anderson up to 81% rostered on CBS and 60% rostered on Yahoo. So could be out there in some of those leagues as well. Let's talk some hitting leftovers. Juan Soto had a huge game, 3 for 4 with a double dong, 4 RBI. One of his home runs, 114.9 exit velocity. The other, 112.1 exit velocity. He has 11 hits in 4 games so far in the second half. That's Juan Soto. Anthony Volpe has actually hit well so far in the second half here. Again, it's an incredibly small sample size. I understand that. But 2 for 4 with his 7th home run. His first homer since May 16th. It is July 23rd. So, a pretty long power drought there for Anthony Volpe. But in 4 games after the break so far, 6 hits, 1 homer, 2 steals for him. O'Neal Cruz, 1 for 3 with 2 steals. Another one, 4 games after the break, 6 hits, 1 homer, 7 RBI, 2 steals. And Francisco Lindor had himself a massive game, 2 for 4 with 2 socks and a shoe. That's 2 home runs and 1 steal. And he is up to 19 homers, 20 steals. Let's make it happen. 30-30, 2 years in a row for Francisco Lindor. Some bullpen updates for the Pirates. David Bednar got the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. He gave up a hit, but picked up his 18th save. For the Mets, Edwin Diaz got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He gave up 1 run, but picked up his 12th save. For the White Sox, Michael Kopech entered with a runner on first and 1 out in the 7th. In a tie game, he recorded the next 5 outs in order. And then John Brebbia got the 9th with a 1-run lead. He gave up a single run on a walk and 2 hits. He took his 2nd blown save, and the White Sox eventually lost in extra innings. For the Angels, Carlos Estevez pitched a clean 9th for his 19th save. And for the Red Sox, who are missing Kenley Jansen because they're in Coors Field, it's already hurt them because Zach Kelly pitched a clean 9th inning with the game tied. The Red Sox took a 2-run lead in the top of the 10th. Kelly came out for the bottom of the 10th. He gave up 2 runs. The Red Sox scored a run later on in the 12th. And then they had lefty Bailey Horn get the bottom of the 12th inning. He was charged with 2 runs, 1 of those earned. He took his first blown save and first loss of the season. To stream or not to stream on Tuesday, some names we mentioned yesterday. Albert Suarez at the Marlins. We also brought up John Gray against the White Sox. Jose Soriano at the Mariners.
Yeah, that's my favorite of the 3.
Yes. There's Colin Ray at the Cubs. Jose Quintana at the Yankees. Lance Lynn at the Pirates.
Yeah, I'll pass on Jose Quintana. He's had some good starts recently, but Yankees, I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would go with Soriano, Suarez, and John Gray in that order. On Wednesday, anybody stand out here? Not a great day. Michael Wacha we like, but D-backs are a little bit of a tougher matchup. There's Sean Manaea at the Yankees, but I don't know about that. Mitchell Parker against the Padres.
I want to say the Padres aren't so great against lefties.
Let's find out about that. They are 22nd in WOBA against lefties. Yeah, so that is a good call.
So Mitchell Parker might be okay. I'm not loving it, but I think of these Michael Wacha against the Diamondbacks would be my first choice, even though it's not such a good matchup. He's just been so reliable lately. Hope it continues.
Let's wrap up with Team Name Tuesday, and these are from Nicholas. Heinz Ketchup.
Like Reese Hines.
Reese Hines.
Probably do something with the first name there, too.
Well, you could go like Reese's Pieces, but then it has nothing to do with ketchup. You could go, just split them up.
You don't need to mix them. You don't want to mix Reese's and ketchup.
Believe me. You do not want to do that. Next up is Bayo Kitty, but it's spelt hello, like Hello Kitty, I guess. But
yeah, okay.
Rice and Schemes.
Okay.
Lemon Terang Pie.
All right.
Gin and Quonic.
Uh-huh.
Stott, Fott, and Cole.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's not a bad multi-name one.
I'll have my eggs Ober medium, please.
Yeah, there's so much you could do with Ober.
The Yates Motel.
Okay.
And Freedbird.
Mm-hmm.
These are from Tom. This vest is Taylor Wade.
I mean, some pretty obscure players there, but okay.
Yeah. Like Will Vest. My God. I just realized the V was capitalized. I was like,
Yeah, Will Vest.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny. Benson and Hedges, which I didn't know apparently is a cigarette brand, but those are two
Mm,
baseball players as well. So there
Yeah,
you go.
I didn't know that either.
And Profar So Good.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
These are from Danny, Wu-Tang Clan.
Yep.
Peanut Butter Ellie with a baseball bat.
Oh, that's good because you got the baseball bat in there just naturally. Yeah, that's very. I haven't seen that one yet, and that's kind of surprising.
Too Legit to Wit.
All right.
Some Like Wit Hot.
Mm-hmm.
Big Willie Style.
Yeah.
This one we couldn't figure it out last time because it was just Schwellenbach's name together. To Schwell and Bach.
I still don't know that I get it.
Oh, it's like to hell and back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually pretty clever. But yeah, someone else sent that in.
A little too clever by half, I'm gonna say.
Someone else sent it in. We just could not figure it out.
Yeah.
Guriel's Just Want to Have Fun.
Mm-hmm.
Psycho Keller.
Okay.
The Bryce is Wainwright.
All righty.
And Wizard of Boz.
All right.
These are from Freddie. The Old Man and the Seawald.
Uh-huh.
The Sun Also Arises.
It sure does.
For Whom the Snell Tolls.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a theme going on there. If you notice. Hemingway.
Ah. Yeah, I mean, I am about as uncultured as they get, Scott. So, yeah, I was not going to get that one. From Sage, Fought Guy in a Littell Coat.
Okay. Got your culture there.
That's good. Freeman Woo Man Haters Club.
Mm-hmm.
From Patrick, When I Say I Love You, You Say Pavetta.
Okay. I don't know.
What is
know
that?
I
When
don't know.
say I love you, you say you better, maybe?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe. Next one, Shirts or Skeins.
Okay.
From Brandon, it's Leviosa, not Lennon Sosa.
Oh, you seem to get that one. I don't get that one.
It's a Harry Potter thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this last one's from Zach, Sunny with a Chance of Scoobles.
Scoobles?
Meatballs, Scoobles. Yeah. It's kind of far off, I guess.
It's a stretch, Zach.
Yeah. All right. Well,
and the book is cloudy with the chance of meatballs anyway. So sunny with the chance of you're just like cramming the extra player name and making it more what's the word? Inaccessible, making it more inaccessible. Less accessible.
I noticed the C in chance is capitalized. Is that a chance?
Probably just because it was a title.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, there's probably some player out there named Chance, right?
Yeah, Chance Cisco.
Sure.
Anytime we get a Chance Cisco reference in here, we've got to go for it. We are going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning into Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.